Hey guys, it's Sunshine, and today I'm going to be doing a book talk about Fairest by Marissa Meyer. So it's actually, again, it's afternoon when I'm filming, like with my winter book talk. I don't remember exactly what time that was, but it was earlier than usual, because usually I film like pretty late at night. So right now it's about 5:08 p.m. And so, I want to say this will have spoilers in it for Fairest, and also it has a little thing I think that has to do with winter, so I would probably not watch this if you haven't read Winter, just in case of spoilers for that too, and the rest of the series, but you've probably read the first 3 books if you read Fairest. Also, I had to add this right after I finished the book talk because I realized I forgot to add. But this is a paperback one that says Squarefish on the side. I mean, I think they're all published by that company probably, but this is a paperback version of Fairest. So I enjoyed reading Fairest, and I found it cool to see what life was like for Levana prior to the events of Cinder. And obviously there wasn't very much mystery in Fairest. Although I like mystery, I could see how Fairest wouldn't have a lot of it, since it's about explaining and answering questions readers might have about Levana's past. And also Fairest wasn't as much of an adventure story as the books in the quartet, but it still kept me interested because each piece of Levana's story was something relevant in some way. So, like I said, Fairest was understandably more about answering questions and creating them. And especially since I'd already read Winter, I knew what Channery did to Levana, and I didn't make many predictions. But Fairest did address one particular thing I'd been wondering about, and that was Levana's relationship with Everett. So first of all, on page 15, it was made clear that Levana did indeed love Everett, and so I'd guessed that in Winter. So in my Winter book talk, I predicted that maybe Levana manipulated Everett into marrying her and protecting her from the assassin. And on Fairest page 87, Levana's manipulation of Everett to get him to love her backed up my prediction because Levana was manipulating him. So I became more confident in my prediction on pages 98 to 99 when she talks about all the times she's manipulated him. And then on page 110, my prediction about Levana forcing Everett to marry her was confirmed. Levana forced tenderness into Everett's thoughts to get him to marry her. However, on Fairest page 217, it's revealed that Everett did not die by way of Levana manipulating him into jumping in front of an assassin for her, and that Levana ordered Everett killed. So that prediction that I made was wrong. The prediction about Levana having manipulated Everett into jumping in front of an assassin. Additionally, on page 133, it's revealed that Channery died of regolith poisoning, and after reading Winter, I'd wondered how Channery died, so now a bit about the characters. So Levana is a really cruel person, and I feel bad for her about how Channery burned her and how Channery treats her, but I still despise Levana. In fact, I kind of thought the way Channery treated Levana is similar to how Adrian Pearl treated Cinder, but Cinder still turned out to be a good person and Levana didn't. I think it was really terrible of Levana to brainwash Everett into loving her. On Fairest pages 89 to 94, Channery's kind of poking at Levana about how Levana is toying with Everett. And so while Channery's being cruel and teasing Levana about it, and Channery says on page 90 to Levana about Levana's manipulation of Everett that it would make me rather proud if you'd set your sights a bit higher. So I do hate Channery, and obviously from her statement about how it would make her proud if Levana had set her sights higher, it's evident that Channery doesn't think it's wrong of Levana to manipulate Everett, and I think it is wrong of Levana. But I do agree with Channery on the fact that Levana's toying with Everett and that he doesn't actually love her romantically, and Levana just doesn't seem to, understand that. So, I mean, the thing is, really, Levana doesn't understand what she's doing is cruel, and she doesn't think about how she's hurting Everett. On Fairest page 101, Everett himself says to Levana, "I don't think you understand what you're doing, how wrong it is." And yet Levana still keeps doing it and doesn't think about how wrong it is. So this actually made me think of how in Winter, page 2 68, Winter told Scarlet she doesn't use her gift because you might think you're doing something good with your gift, but it actually turns out you're doing something bad. And so this seems to be the case with Levana. However, I have two things to say here. First of all, I think most people, if they were in Levana's place, would be able to tell that what they're doing to Everett is wrong. On Fairest page 99, it's revealed that 6 times Everett has told Levana to stop. And also on page 99, he says she's torturing him. On page 101, he screams at Levana that he doesn't love her. Also on page 101, he tells her what she's doing is wrong. So I think to most people it would be pretty obvious that what Levana's doing is wrong. And then second of all, I stick with what I said in my winter book talk, that the gift is not the only thing you could think you're doing something good but actually be doing something bad with, and that there are good uses for the gift. So while I disagree with Winter's decision of not using her gift, I just wanted to point out that Levana is a case of doing something terrible with your gift and not realizing how bad it is. So I do see a lot of ignorance in Levana. In addition to believing what she's doing to Everett isn't wrong, Levana believes she's a good queen. On page 137, she thinks she was the queen Luna had been waiting for, and since she had taken power, the city was thriving. The outer sectors were flourishing. Everything was exactly as Levana knew it should be. So the thing is, Levana isn't even good to her own people, contrary to what she thinks. On Fairest, page 135, it's revealed that Levana's still using shells for blood samples. So I think that's terrible because it's forcing shells to be kept constantly unconscious and miss out on their life. On pages 136 to 137, it's revealed that Levana's made the workday longer, and there were already complaints of people being overworked, so I think it's cruel that she's overworking her people. On page 137, it's revealed that Levana's continuing with turning young boys into wolf soldiers for her army, and that's terrible of her because she's taking them away from their families and forcing them to be mutated like what happened with Wolf. On page 138, Han mentions that there's potential unrest amongst the civilians, and he kind of tries to tread lightly around it, saying, "It is only that there will always be a few bad seeds in the outer sectors. We would hate to give them too much time to infect the others." But my thoughts are that people must dislike Levana if there's a potential uprising at hand. On pages 170 to 171, Levana thinks about how citizens from the outer sectors are fleeing Luna, and this shows that people are displeased with how Levana's treating them. She thinks their escape is selfish, but really they're escaping because they're being mistreated. On pages 170 to 172, Levana thinks about spreading Latumesis and killing many Earthens. So, although that is for the good of Luna because Lunars will have the luxury of living on Earth, it still shows Levana's cruelty because she doesn't care at all about Earthens. Rather than working with them, which would be a possible solution, trying to forge an alliance, which has happened before, having an alliance between Earth and Luna. But rather than trying to forge an alliance, Levana just wants to annihilate Earthens. So, Levana's very ignorant to think she's such a great queen. On Fairest, page 180, Levana thinks how Artemisia is thriving. And, while Artemisia is thriving, the outer sectors aren't. Levana even thinks of how she visits them to remind them they love her, which basically means she's brainwashing them and that they wouldn't love her otherwise. So, that shows Levana's a bad queen. On page 211, it's revealed that Levana is forcing men into being guards by threatening their loved ones. It says some of the young men they tried to draft didn't want to be guards at all, especially those who had a family in the same sector they would be monitoring. Levana solved that problem by threatening the livelihoods of those very families they were so concerned about. So that's an instance of Levana being cruel to her people. Then on page 212, it's revealed that Levana's curfew is unpopular, so she's making examples of people who try to break the curfew. So that's cruel as well. And then there's the fact that in winter, the people do rebel against Levana, so that shows that she's widely disliked. So basically, there are numerous things that show Levana's not the amazing queen she thinks she is, and I think the fact that she believes she's an amazing queen shows her ignorance. So as I said earlier, Channery is incredibly cruel and mean, and as I said in my winter book talk, I don't believe Channery's cruelty is an excuse for Levana's cruelty, but I do feel bad for Levana that she was abused by Channery. Everett is very kind, especially towards Levana, and he's also forgiving in that he sometimes sympathizes with and pities Levana despite the bad things she's done to him. And Everett was selfless when on pages 216 to 217 he attacks Haddon to try to save Levana. So now I'm going to talk a bit about the theme of times to lie. Levana constantly uses glamour to cover her true appearance and make herself look beautiful. So I feel Levana's use of glamour isn't justified. I know that in the world Levana lives in, people would tease her to no end if they saw her, but it still isn't a matter of life and death for Levana to make everyone think she's so beautiful, and it's deceptive of her to do so. So, I mean, Earthens who are mutilated can't use glamour to cover themselves, and they get on as best they can. So, I know that in Levana's time, there's no bioelectrical security block, so she'd go insane if she didn't use her glamour. So I think Levana should use her glamour periodically to maintain her sanity, but not constantly make every person she meets think she's something she isn't. And on Fairest pages 143 to 146, Everett's trying to convince Levana to let the people see what's beneath her glamour. So I can see how that would be really hard for Levana to show the people what she really looks like, but I agree with Everett that it will also be really hard for the people to trust Levana if she won't show anyone what she looks like. So it kind of came to my attention that Levana covering her burns is a bit like Cinder covering her prostheses. So, however, I have a couple things to say on this matter. First, when Cinder kept her secret from Kai and didn't tell him she was Cyborg, she thought she'd never see him again. On Cinder page 292, Cinder thinks how Kai will forget her quickly. So Cinder never expected to see Kai after that, and she expected him to forget her. So it wouldn't really have mattered whether he'd known she was Cyborg or not. So that deception, I think it then falls under Cinder's personal decision, and it's justified for her to hide it. Second, Levana never reveals to her people what she truly looks like. On Fairest page 191, she does show Everett, but she never shows her people, whereas Cinder does stop covering her prostheses. So I do have a general observation pertaining to how Lunars use glamour a ton. I think that Lunars periodically using glamour to alter their appearance is justified because they'd go insane if they didn't. And so, plus on Luna, everyone alters their appearance with glamour, so it's kind of like using makeup on Earth. However, I think Lunars shouldn't randomly use their gift to manipulate people's minds and bodies, as it's a violation of a person's rights. Like, I don't think they should randomly use it. I don't think they should use it just for their own selfish purposes. And I also don't think Lunars should use glamour constantly to make themselves jaw-droppingly beautiful, as it's deceptive and they're being something they're not. So, I mean, I think it's justified to use the gift when it's necessary, and it's understandable to use it to keep your sanity. But since at the end of winter, the bioelectrical security block that will help Lunars keep their sanity can be reproduced. This is talked about on winter pages 789 to 792. Lunars won't need to use their glamour to stay sane anymore, which is good. And I assume once the bioelectrical security blocks are mass-produced, most Earthens will get them. So I'd say that's good because Earthens will be able to make sure they aren't manipulated, and it kind of evens everyone out. Lunars can use makeup to dress up their appearance just like Earthens can, but Lunars don't have the extreme power their gift allows. But before the bioelectrical security block, I'd say it's justified to use the gift for necessary or for harmless things in order for Lunars to keep their sanity. On Fairest page 116, Levana uses her gift to hold a servant's tongue, so I believe that was unjustified. When the servant made an inconsiderate comment, Levana could have just told the servant to be quiet rather than physically manipulated her. On pages 154 to 155, Levana uses her gift to persuade the nanny into setting the nursery on fire, which will result in the death of Celine and the nanny. So Levana's use of the gift is obviously unjustified. First off, it's just cruel and terrible to kill a 3-year-old and her nanny. And second, killing Celine will allow Levana to stay in power, which Levana thinks is for the good of Luna, but it's not. As I talked about earlier, Levana's a cruel and terrible queen. So overall, I thought Fairest was a fun and interesting read, and I'm going to be reading Stars Above, which is the collection of short stories about the Lunar Chronicles characters. And like I said in my winter book talk, I've already read Glitches and The Queen's Army, and I don't know if those are in Stars Above or not, but they might be. So, as I've said, school has started, so I actually finished this book last Sunday, so I guess 6 days ago because today's Saturday. But the book talk didn't take me that long to do. It's just I barely worked on it all school week. I kind of worked on it Monday because I had some free time, and then I finished up today. And the other days I barely worked on it, did little touches up, but it just took a long time because of school. And so same thing with Stars Above. I don't know, it's probably going to take longer than it would if I'd been reading it during the summer, but we'll see. Hopefully I'll see you in a Stars Above book talk. And Sunshine River signing out.